So I'm disappointed to hear from NASA and Chloe that no one missed me. I was off sick.
Yes. Well, I missed you anyway.
Did you?
I'd say that.
Yeah, because obviously.
Because I had to do all the work.
You had to do all the work,
100%.
and all this stuff has been going on in the background, and which is what we're going to talk about. But yeah, no, I had a little issue with my kidneys. All is good. I'm back. I did a good bit of reading and this sort of thing. And of course, over the last few days, my phone hasn't stopped because we're going to discuss, weirdly, the would-be President Jim Gavin's step down from the race for the Oras, and where Micheál Martin is now with Fianna Fáil. We're not very political, you and I, but you've landed us right in the middle of it. So go on.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's the second election in a row we're in the middle of.
Yeah, that's very true.
After Jerry Hutch. But yeah, so look, it's a complicated kind of story, but it's simple in another way. I suppose
we're unmasking you as the tenant.
As the tenant. I suppose we've unmasked people as...
I'm going to have to get you a T-shirt with the tenant written on it, because that just sort of came, it sort of became something, didn't it, as this story unfolded?
It did. Yes, that's what I am. I am.
So yeah. So basically, the story, if anybody out there has been living under a rock and doesn't know about it, Jim Gavin has stepped down from the race for the Oras because of a €3,300 unpaid euro or pounds euro unpaid debt for rent from 2009, and that debt was to you.
It was to me.
Most people in around our circles know this story from old, because this has been one of your party pieces almost, this story, and your kind of run in with Jim Gavin, who of course was such a powerful personality. He's been a very popular guy in the GAA, very popular in Dublin, of course. I'm sure anybody who was from any of the counties that were up against that Dublin team wasn't too fond of him, but he is very popular and all the rest of it. But you always had your side of the story to tell, which was your rent debacle with him.
Yeah, so obviously, Jim Gavin's accomplishments, you don't need me to relay them. But yeah, I would have, over the years in the newsroom now we share with the Indo and other papers like the Sunday Indo, I would have always, everybody who worked with me probably knew my history with Jim Gavin, in that every time Dublin won an All-Ireland or whatever, people would say, there's your mate Jim Gavin.
Yeah. Who was far from your mate, with the story we're going to hear.
No, he wasn't so I had that history, and I would have been speaking about it over the years. And of course, everybody who knew me outside of journalism would have known it as well. Look, I suppose...
this story has just, snowballed over the past few days, really. And you are now kind of in the centre of it, which is why we decided we'd chat about it here and get it out there. There is, and you can feel stories moving and changing, especially when you're in the media, you can see what's happening. And there is this focus at the moment about who is the tenant, and there has been some social media up about that the tenant was you, etc. So let's start from the beginning. This was 16 years ago. You weren't a journalist for too long at that stage. You've spoken before on the podcast how you came to journalism late in life. Yeah,
to be very brief, I did a master's when I was 29, and straight out of that master's, I got a job in the Sunday Mirror at the time, where I was working on, I suppose, a day-to-day contract.
Shift work, we used to call it, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore in journalism. And I think I was starting off getting paid €80 a day.
Yeah.
I think I went up to 100. So that was my first, even though I was... advanced in years. That was my first start in journalism. And after I'd been working there for a period of time, a few months or whatever, I don't remember exactly, I moved out of home with a friend of mine. And we rented an apartment in Blackhall Square in Smithfield.
Okay.
Now, the exact dates, and I have sympathy with Jim Gavin on this point, like it's so long ago.
So you were what, about 30?
Maybe 31 or 31, something like that. Something along those lines. I moved out. So I don't have the exact dates, but it was at a time, it was probably in 2007.
Yeah.
Now, at that time, rent in Dublin I think 2007 they were still high, but they were starting to come down. They would come down dramatically in 2008 due to the crash. I mean, rents peaked, sometime in or around then, and then as house prices dropped, they started to come down. So with my friend, we applied for. We answered an ad, probably in the paper at the time, but maybe on Daft.
Oh, is this a 2-bed apartment or something?
2-bedroom apartment in Smithfield, not directly on the square, and at a very reasonable price, I think, at the time. I think it was €1,000 a month, which would have been on the lower end, but not massively.
So you were kind of essentially paying £500 each for a room.
Exactly. Yeah. And, we rang up the landlord, met the landlord. I think he was very nice, polite, kind of quiet and shy, I would describe him as, at the time, and we agreed to rent it there, said we were interested in, phoned them back. And as he left, the guy who was renting it, a friend of mine, said, "You know who he is?" And I said, "No, I don't have a clue." And he recognised him as Jim Gavin, the ex-Dublin footballer. But I wouldn't have known him.
So he wasn't manager then at that stage?
No,
an ex-footballer.
He was an ex-footballer. I mean, I don't know how long he retired, but a few years. He'd been obviously played through the 90s with the Dublin team. So I didn't recognise him. So I moved in with my friend, lived there for, I think by the time I left, I think it was around 2.5 years. In that time, house, rental prices started going up a bit. And as we got to renew the lease, he wanted to put up the rent, which is fine. And we've been paying by standing order. Anyway, so eventually my friend moved out, and I was in a relationship at the time. She moved in, and whatever way the standing orders were changed, I had 2 standing orders. So there was an increase in the rent, and instead of changing my standing order, I think I just added another one.
You had 2 sort of amounts of money coming out of your account.
Exactly. So I think at some point I started working in the Star again on shift work, slightly better paid, and the rent I think went up a second time, but not by too much.
Yeah.
And we lived there, and he was, we had very little dealings with him as a landlord. I'm not going to get into any ins and outs because people have ins and outs to landlords, totally normal. Not that big a deal, certainly not that big a deal over time. I stayed there for about 2.5 years with these standing orders coming out all the time. So the date I eventually left was, I moved out of the apartment, I have it here, at the beginning of May in 2009.
Right.
I was expecting my first child, then looking maybe to get somewhere different to live. So I cancelled the standing orders, obviously, when I moved out. And I don't remember cancelling them, but I presume I did it on internet banking. I had 2 accounts. I had a savings account, and I had a regular kind of current account. And, sometimes moving money between them or whatever, had some savings, but really, really not a lot. Wasn't getting paid particularly well. And I must have cancelled one of the standing orders, and I failed to cancel the other one. So that money was coming out of an account that I didn't check. Now, a normal person probably would check it.
Savings account, sometimes you don't.
Okay. But either way, I didn't. And, people can say my stupidity has played a role in it, and they would be 100% right. So this extra money was for €550. That had included a bit of an increase, and it came out from May to November.
Right.
So 550 for 6 months adds up to 3,300. And I didn't notice or got confused or whatever. I just didn't notice, right? So at that point, then, obviously, I must have looked back.
I'd say you were in November, you were coming up to Christmas, and you were probably going,
where's
I'll
all
have
my
to
money?
dip into my savings here now to buy.
And of course, had other obligations. But that was the full extent of my savings, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have anything else. And obviously, I was, that was it. So I looked at it and realised, and obviously straight away contacted him. As far as I recall, I did get him on the phone or by text that he'd said he'd look into it or whatever.
So you basically said, I have inadvertently overpaid you.
Yes.
I'm not living in your property anymore,
Yeah.
but this standing order has continued. 3,300 has gone to you. That is mine.
Exactly.
Can you give it back?
I'm really sorry for the mistake, but can I have my money back, basically?
Yeah.
And as far as I remember, he certainly said I'd look into it or whatever. And then obviously you wait and you expect him to get back to you or whatever, and it didn't happen. And then I phoned him a couple of times, he didn't get back, sent him emails, sent him texts, all that sort of stuff.
And like, are you confident in the beginning you're going to get the money back? Because, you know.
Totally, because I've asked people.
And he's a decent landlord, he has been, you've had no issues with him.
Totally. So he just stopped answering.
Yeah. But you initially were confident you were going to get the money back, I imagine.
Yeah.
And then do you start going, oh, this isn't right.
This isn't working out as I hope.
Yeah.
So at that point, like he won't get back over an extended period of time.
How long are you talking?
Well, I mean, I'm certainly talking, weeks anyway, going into months. And, so I try, he won't answer the phone, or the phone is off a lot. And he will be traveling, of course, as part of his job. So, obviously had his email for the Defence Forces, send emails there. I constructed an email laying it out in detail, which I still have, that was sent to him, just basically laying out the facts of it. And at that point, I still think he might get back or whatever. But it becomes obvious, I start phoning his job. But I know that I'm not, like, I might be just young in the world of journalism, but I know you can't keep harassing people forever.
Yeah.
You just can't keep sending people emails, and you have to.
When you're not getting anywhere, you also have to kind of
but look
what you're going to do next.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's 3,300, a lot of money, and I go to a solicitor. And at that point, I think we were 3 months into trying to seek the money. So I went to a solicitor, and they said, well, these are your options. Because I'd looked into the other options at this point. I'd looked into the small claims court, which I think is only 15. And again, passage of time, I could be slightly wrong with the figure, but I think it was 1,500 was the maximum you could go to that court for. I think it's up more now. But at the time, I remember being told you can't go to that; it's too much money.
Right.
So I went to the PRTB.
What's that now?
That's the private residence tenancies board. So this is a thing that was brought in 5 years earlier, where all landlords have to be registered there. And part of that registration is that if you have a dispute with your landlord, and in particular, I think a lot of it would focus on not getting your deposit back, that you can go there, and it's a kind of a civil forum.
A mediation, nearly.
A mediation, where they'll look at it and make a determination. So I went there, and it's actually very hard to get information out of them, I remember at the time. But ultimately, I found out he wasn't registered there.
Right.
Which you're meant to be.
Okay.
So it's a law, and he's addressed that in his statements subsequently, saying, I can't remember, he's saying more than half of landlords at that point hadn't registered. Right. I think most of them would be registered now, but it was still an obligation, so I couldn't go there. So I went to a solicitor, and they said, well, do you have his home address? And his home address wasn't on the lease. Because I had the lease at the time, I probably still have it somewhere. Because his home address wasn't on the lease, I didn't have his home address, which I think you're meant to, but again, it's not that big a deal. So I couldn't go to his house, or I couldn't send a letter to his house. But so I had 3 addresses. I had his workplace.
Which was Baldonnell, was it?
Yeah.
Because he was working for the Irish Defence Forces at that stage.
Yeah, indeed, the Air Corps or whatever. And then he had I had obviously the apartment I lived in, which he still owned for a number of years after. So I sent a letter there, and then I had his parents' address. I think I can't even remember where I got it, but it's on. I think it was on Tom's directory or whatever.
Yeah.
So I knew at that stage that he didn't want to talk to me.
So you were at this point trying to get a registered solicitor's letter to him saying, you got to pay back the money.
Yeah, I have the solicitor's letter
Yeah.
there. It says, we're instructed, our client now insists and demands immediate and full payment of this entire sum, namely €3,300.
Right.
And it says, please note, if the payment of the above mentioned amount is not made within 14 days of this letter, we are instructed to issue proceedings. Right. Okay. So that's where I got this.
So that's where you got to, and you were trying to get this letter into his hand.
I was to make sure he had it. No ifs or buts.
Yeah.
So I called to his parents' house. Now I knew enough that I'm not calling to the parents' house saying your son owes me money, give me money. There was just no way I was going to do that or put that on them. Nothing to do with them. So I called and I had the letter in an envelope marked private and confidential, and I knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm really sorry to call to your house. I'm a former tenant of Jim's. I'm just looking to get a letter to him. I don't have his home address." And they were really, really nice. They asked me to step in. They said, "Do you want a cup of tea or anything?" And said, "Is there any problem?" I said, "There's no problem. No issue at all. And I won't stay for a cup of tea. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure he gets this letter." So I knew it's nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Right. And I just wanted to get the letter to him. So later that night then, it must have been after midnight, and he definitely had different schedule because of his job. He'd be, working all sorts of hours flying around. He phoned me, and I think it's on private number, but again, passage of time. And, but it was after midnight or something, and he phoned me up, really, really irate. Let's put it that way.
Because you'd called to his parents' house.
Yeah, really, really irate.
And what was the content of the phone call? Was he saying?
What was he saying? He was basically.
Was he disputing that he owed you the money, or was he?
No, he was angry that I called to his
parents' house,
which I can actually understand. So
yeah.
I wouldn't actually hold that against him at all. So, but ultimately, he calmed down.
And were you sort of saying to him, "Look, I've tried everything to get your, I've been emailing you, I've been calling."
Yeah, I said, "You're not answering. You're not dealing with this. It's my money, in fairness."
Yeah.
And eventually he sort of calmed down and said, yeah, he accepted he owed me the money. And he said, "I'm transferring it now."
Right.
On the phone now, I'm transferring it. It'll be in your account in 5 working days or whatever.
So you said puppy days at long last.
Yeah, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
And the money just never arrived.
And when was that then?
Well, it was, the letter was sent in the late February 2010.
2010, right, yeah. Okay.
So
the money never arrived after that?
The money never arrived. And obviously I waited for a few days and then gave a few extra days and tried to contact them again. And
this letter had said that he was been put on notice, he had to pay up in 14 days or else you were going to take proceedings. So what happened next?
Well, I had no money.
Right.
So
what would it have cost you to take the proceedings?
Look, I can't remember, but you're talking, I would have won.
Yeah.
But you would have been talking.
And was he at this point manager of Dublin? No. So he's not a kind of well known.
No, he's not. Except for being an ex-GAA guy, he's not well known. He would have been known in that context. So, I made other attempts to contact him. Nothing happened. I've continued to make attempts to contact him over time. Never talked to him again. Never talked to him since. Life goes on.
Did you talk to the rest of us about it?
Well, I started the Sunday World and had a child and all those, life takes over. And what I was told with the court was, you're probably going to win, but, you can never know with a court.
Yeah.
You can't, and it would cost whatever to launch proceedings and take proceedings.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, look. Yeah.
So it is a risk when you don't have it.
It's a risk.
Yeah.
But, it was probably a risk I won, but I just didn't do it.
So you're moving into sort of, I suppose, 2010 to 2020, but at which point he does, over that period of time, become a really well-known figure because he becomes the famous Dublin manager and they win 5 in a row. Even I knew who he was then. I think I met him one time with a friend of mine. And he did come across as sort of he was always sort of described as a sort of humble figure. But whenever the Dubs would win or the whole thing would come up, you'd be getting the texts from friends and stuff going, there's your man, did you ever get your money back?
Exactly. And, I suppose actually when he did win the 5 in a row, I thought, well, this would be a great time. if you wanted to get your money back. But
To do what?
well, to sort of
To do a story. You mean you're an established journalist at this stage,
well,
or what?
maybe or maybe
Or to contact him and ask him again.
yeah, but or to do a story, I suppose. I think it would have been out of time in reality. But
Yeah.
but you know, I didn't do it, and I didn't have any desire to do it, and because he was a sports person,
Yeah.
so he's a public figure in that way, but he's a public figure for something in the sporting arena. It's not. He's not.
Got nothing to do with landlording, is it?
No, it's nothing
Yeah.
to do with landlording or you know, running the country. And I just thought, look, it's not for me.
But having said that, my journalistic instinct would say, because I've seen a lot of people, you know, on social media and stuff, making out that you were waiting in the long grass.
Mhm.
But I would have, my journalistic instinct, if you were that type of a person and you thought you had something on someone like that and you had a kind of a thing against them, that was the time to go, when he was like flying high as Dublin manager. But
well, I mean, I did have, like, I'm not going to, like, I mean, it was a terrible thing, to be honest. That it's not terrible. Like, if you've ever been in those circumstances where, you know, you feel that you've been ripped off, like, it gives you this feeling of being powerless.
Yeah.
And you know, I was really struggling financially. That's the truth of it. So anyway, so on we go. And yeah, like, you know, it comes to the election and
his hat goes in the ring. And all of a sudden, he's not a Dublin manager anymore. He's not a sporting personality. He's somebody who's going for the highest office in the land.
yeah. So, I mean, I've been telling this story for years. I mean, every single person who knows me probably knows this story. And I was telling it in the office, and some of the politics guys heard about it and asked me for a bit more detail. And I told them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think
this was weeks ago now.
Weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Fianna Fáil has it in the Irish Independent that he asked them about the tenancy in the start of September.
He asked Jim Gavin or Fianna Fáil?
Well, he asked Fianna Fáil.
Okay.
Yeah, because not Jim Gavin, no. Fianna Fáil, though. So, I mean, this is out there. I mean, I know for a fact it was discussed at the Labour Party thinking at the start of September as well. I mean, it's just out there. I mean, loads of people know about it, and
people should know, I suppose, and maybe they do. Journalists are gossipy, and like when you know something and it goes around and people talk, and they are also, especially when it comes to something when it goes into the political arena, because you know these, like, you know, the race for the Oras is a bloodbath, isn't it? I mean, there's been people before who have, you know, looked steady and all of a sudden something comes out against them. It is a sort of a particular thing that you really need your ducks in a row, and you don't need anything there in the background that's going to cause you an issue for this race. And like Fianna Fáil have been sort of, it's been highlighted to them. So when Fiona and Sheehan contacted them, he was looking for a comment, or he was looking for...
I mean, I don't know, actually.
You don't know?
Because I wasn't... So we talked about it, me and Fianna. He asked me about it. I sent him a couple of the emails I had, the letters that I had.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear anything about it, and I didn't actually hassle him or ask him about it again. I thought it would just be a little footnote in a story. And then, obviously, ultimately, Fianna Fáil got formally told, I think, that their story was going in. And if you read the original story, it wasn't really about the tenancy.
Okay.
But the tenancy is mentioned.
He looked for a comment or whatever at that stage.
Yeah.
So you're talking about sort of 2 weeks, 3 weeks literally later when this this story is still there in the ether, and it's now like, okay, we're going to run this.
Yeah.
You know, is that's the way it happened?
That's the way it happened. They get told on the Thursday that they're running it. But it was a broader story. It was a story about his financial difficulties.
Right.
So that apartment ultimately would be given back to the bank, which I never knew. I mean, when I think of that, like, I mean, I can really understand that. If he had this pressure going on in the background, that he was in, that he had loads of people looking for money off him.
Is that what he said?
Well, no, he didn't. He didn't get into that great detail, but he was in financial difficulty. I mean, he says that, and he said that before, and he probably had his family that he had to keep. Now he had 2 houses. I had no house, but
Yeah.
so that obviously was going on for him, and maybe I was.
So the story that sort of broke was more about that he'd had these financial difficulties, but in the centre of the heart of this story is that this tenant, being
Well,
you,
it was in the centre of it, but I don't know if it was the heart of it.
Right.
The story was a broad story, but the tenancy got picked up. And on Friday, I think the statement was that he had no recollection of it. So, I mean, that I found that kind of frustrating, because, like, all through those years, like, I had a recollection of it, and I had a bad feeling about it, and so that frustrated me. I have to say that Fianna Fáil put out that statement.
And anybody who knows you would know how, you know, can I say anal you are about keeping records about things, because you are, and I think you have this kind of a mind, unlike mine, that you go, if I do this is going to be the result of it. You're kind of mathematical or something.
Well,
like that sort of thing.
look, I felt,
and you do keep emails, and you do things. You know, you'd find out which.
Well, I know. I mean, with something like this, I was trying to think ahead, but I mean, certainly wasn't trying to think ahead of my finances, but so I knew certain things to do. But so they came back, and I found that frustrating because it had been a big deal for me, and it came at a time in my life with, a difficult time, and I was under a lot of pressure financially myself. And then when I read the piece, I found, kind of a bit of a different thing of.
You mean when you read what Fianna Fáil had said, is it?
No, when I read about his own financial difficulties at the time, it did give it a context.
Right.
So the context was that maybe he had huge pressures, and I was just one little one of them. Maybe it wasn't even the biggest one. I don't know. I'm not speaking.
Maybe he didn't have the money to pay you back. Is that what you mean?
I doubt he did.
Yeah.
I doubt he did. Yeah. And I doubt, I mean, I don't know.
He'd have gone somewhere else or whatever.
Who knows, right?
Pushed around.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I totally kind of understood that, and I really felt like, why didn't they just contact me a few weeks ago and
sort it out?
Yeah. Or explain it to me, or explain it to somebody. I mean, I presume Jim Gavin doesn't have that kind of media savvy. Why would he?
Yeah.
He's not a spin doctor for a political party. I really felt like that should have been resolved, and I felt sorry for him. So I rang up Fianna Fáil on Saturday and said, I'm not happy that you've put it out that that he can't remember it. It just makes me sound like this is not true, and it's not fair. Like,
yeah.
Now, and people say, why didn't I do this in the Sunday World, or why wasn't I putting my name to it? Well, I mean, for a start, we didn't do it in the Sunday World because it would have been a conflict of interest. This is a personal story. Now, I could have, maybe there is a way it could have been done, but it was
I think you probably could have if you wanted to, really.
But I felt it was a conflict of interest, and it was just about.
We also don't do politics much.
No, but it was also, I felt it was, then I'm getting personal, and I'm bringing all of that in, and instead I just wanted, just it to be looked at in the issue itself, and also, I didn't. It's my private information with finances and all of that, and didn't really want to discuss that publicly, as people have a right not to, I suppose. But so all of that's the decision I made. But then I rang up Fianna Fáil, but I'm not ringing up as Niall Donald from Crime World or the Sunday World and just saying it's not fair. And obviously then they went back to Jim Gavin at some point and said there is records.
Right.
Because I do have some records, not everything, and I could probably dig out more, to be honest. But they went back to him, and he at least partially accepted it. And then I was amazed to see him go on Sunday morning on the debate. I just thought I can't understand why they didn't make the decision at that point, one way or another.
You kind of feel they threw him out a bit to the.
Yeah, I kind of feel that. But people could say, well, you threw him to the wolves first, so you take that on the chin. So then he resigned, and he looked he didn't. I felt sorry for him on Sunday. I mean, I'm not going to overdo it, but I felt sorry for him because he's under pressure. People make mistakes.
But this wasn't addressed. And I mean, there was loads of time to address this as you were looking for the money back. And it's when it comes up, when he's going for the office of president, it still isn't addressed. For 3 weeks, it's sitting there.
No, I mean, it's not. And look, people make mistakes. I mean, people make, and who wants to have something that's happened so long ago to
but it seems within the race for the presidency, when you make a mistake in that, you're gone. Like, doesn't it? It's happened. It happens nearly in every time.
Well, I mean, look,
there's an election, somebody falls, don't they?
Well, look, I mean, it's a small amount of money in the scheme of things. There's obviously one of Garen Noon has done a video about how if this is in the US, you'd be talking 30 billion, but it's an Irish kind of scandal that it's 3,000.
And sorry, by the way, have you been paid back the money yet?
No, I haven't. Heard anything. And obviously, when it comes to the money, like, I mean, the statute of limitations for pursuing it is long gone. So I'm not going to be pursuing the money.
You can't,
but I can't legally.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be ringing up looking for my money. So it's up to him if he wants to pay it back or not.
So how do you feel like? Because I mean, it's a huge thing, really, isn't it?
I'd probably...
I feel like there's something on your shoulders with regards to it, or...
Yeah, probably, and I probably do feel,
it wasn't an outcome you wanted, essentially.
No, I think, does the punishment fit the crime? Probably not.
Yeah.
I kind of feel sorry for him that he wasn't handled better.
Yeah.
I mean, not blaming Fianna Fáil or whatever. Maybe they didn't get full info. I feel sorry for him because it's going to hang over him. But it did hang over me. Maybe in a different, maybe in a less public way. But it hung over me. But I do feel that maybe he's been punished too much. But I don't really know, Nicola. I don't, like, it's not been a comfortable thing. And I wasn't, of course, trying to hide my identity. I think I've explained how it is. So there's no big secret, though. I mean, like anybody who's asked me, I've said, yeah, of course it is me.
Yeah.
And
you never sort of thought it would end up being you being part of the story, really.
No. I thought it'd be a side issue, but something about it, of course. And again, like, you do wonder with the political parties. I mean, something about it, I suppose. People had sympathy for the tenant now, but sympathy for me now that they know I'm the tenant. That's another matter. But what I mean is that it's those kind of little things that people have had in their lives, or know somebody has had in their lives, that kind of strike you as being more unfair than somebody, with a huge amount of money or something sometimes. So I do feel sympathy for him for that, because it's something that struck a chord in some way. But yeah. So
but it is kind of uncomfortable being stuck in the middle of it when you didn't have an agenda going out in the first place.
No, I didn't.
It's not like you're sitting here. It's not like you're sitting here. I think people can see that smug, going, brilliant. This is exactly what it was. Absolutely not what you set out to do. Your story was sort of always there, floating around. You were being slagged really for years about.
I've been slagged. Well, no, I mean, it wasn't. That wasn't the motivation either. But I was being slagged all the time, and everybody knew it. And look, somebody said to me there from my family, I couldn't watch the Dublin All Irelands with any joy because I remember this.
Yeah.
But, I didn't, of course, know any of the context in which this happened to that man.
Yeah.
In which he decided not to pay that money at that time. I mean, if I'd ever been told by him back then, look, I'm in total financial difficulty, I'll pay you back when I can, I would have said no problem.
Yeah.
I would have said no problem. I would have said, pay me back over time, or pay me back whatever amount of it. There's no difficulty. And if Fianna Fáil or anybody had come to me a couple of weeks ago and said, I would have said, look, that's the way it goes in life. I totally understand. So I kind of, if you could ask me, do I feel guilty? Well, I don't really, because it's the truth, but I feel, I do kind of think it could have been a better outcome.
So what else has been going on since I've been off? I mean, for goodness sake, that was so dramatic, all of that.
Yeah, it was.
Been very dramatic, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's probably the crime stories didn't
They didn't
at that level. But
suffer.
no, but I mean, the courts come back this week.
I know. I was there. I'm going to talk to Eamon. I'll tell you a little bit about it. I was down in the Special Criminal Court yesterday because the trial of James Lean, the Kerry man accused of, that crystal meth story that we've talked about quite a lot that links him with the Sinaloa cartel, that was due to get underway. Reason why it didn't, but I'll talk to Eamon about it. Both myself and Eamon were there on the day, and there were some other interesting cases going
there was
through
obviously
special, obviously.
And obviously Barbie Cardassian getting out. That was obviously caught people's attention. But there was also a couple of those very personal tragedies occurring in Louth and in Finglas. Very sad deaths of people and a man charged obviously with killing his parents and his brother. So these were, really, really tragic stories, I suppose.
Well, I think we need to get back to doing what we do. Get your head out of the political landscape and we get back to crime, because at least we sort of know our stuff somewhat around that. And we'll be back. We will have lots to talk about as the week goes on. But I suppose in the meantime, thanks for doing that.
Thank you very much, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.